I hate walking into a house now and you see the same old things that anyone else can buy, right? The live, love, love sign, the everything. Chris, what a great story. I'll give you that little fist bump there. Yeah, my upbringing where I'd see my mum literally counting 1s and 2p's to be able to go and buy something for the shopping. I think every good salesperson can remember their first ever sale. And in today's episode, I'm going to share with you not only my first ever sale, but sort of some of my sales journey throughout the years. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Sales Circle podcast. The sales podcast that is designed to help you make more sales. I cannot say it any clearer than that. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time, welcome. My name is Rob Spence, your host. I'm an internationally renowned sales trainer, sales author, sales coach. What else have I missed off there? The managing director of Paragon Sales Solutions. And an all-round nice guy, I'd like to think. Welcome to this episode of the Sales Circle podcast. We're going to be sharing some stories, okay? We're going to be sharing some stories about my first sale. Now, I said a few episodes ago about how I want to make the podcast a bit more human. For me personally, and please feel free to write in if you think I'm wrong, I started to feel that the podcast was becoming a bit of a training. It was becoming a bit of a monologue. It was becoming a bit of a seminar about sales. And of course, I want to make really clear the intentions of the Sales Circle podcast is to give you skill sets, mindsets, motivation, psychologies to help you sell more, right? 100%, that's what it's got to do. But I don't want you to be driving on the way into work feeling like you're being lectured to. I don't want you to be driving to your next sales meeting thinking you're being talked at. I want us, you and me, I want us to find some collaboration, some community and cohesion so that hopefully whatever I say resonates with you and you can take those stories, those lessons, then into your sales career. So today, as I said, I've got some notes. I had to make some notes because I always forget things these days. I think it must be my age. I'm going to be talking about my first sale. Gosh, I've just remembered some more. Goodness. Okay. We'll come on to those in a minute. We're going to be talking about sort of my first sale, and then we're going to sort of talk about some of the things that I started to sell. And actually, I did reach out to some contacts, some listeners, and some people have all shared their stories as well. So we're going to share some stories and what we can learn from them. So before we crack on with the main part of the episode, you know what I'm going to ask you. Hit that follow button, share this with a couple of your colleagues or your peers, and if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Let's crack on. So I think many salespeople, business owners can all think back to their first ever sale. Right, you know, for me, you know, to be fair, I wrote down one of my first ever sales, okay, and actually there's some a bit more that we should probably talk about. I never grew up intending to be a salesperson, and in fact, it's very rare that you do. I think times are changing, however. I think salespeople are getting a bit of a better reputation, the fact that people are understanding that sales can be a fun career, it can be a fun sales skill, it can be something fun to do, and of course, some good monetary rewards as well. And I think that's allowing people to think, do you know what, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to be a salesperson, which is awesome. But I never set out to be a salesperson. For me, I always used to love a couple of things. I used to love helping people, and I still love helping people. It's something that's really strong in my heart. But not only do I love helping people, I'll be honest, I love money. I love having money. And I don't want you to sit there and think, you know, that's out of greed. Don't want you to think that's out of any sort of, greed is probably the word I'm going to go for. Between you and I, my family and I grew up with very minimal disposable income. My idea of a dinner, my idea of a meal was spaghetti bolognese out of a tin can, right? That's what we'd have, you know, pretty much Monday to Friday. I thought that spaghetti bolognese came from a can. And actually, I remember having my first ever spaghetti bolognese at a friend's, and I was blown away with all the flavors, the tomato, the garlic, the textures and everything. You know, and I still recount and recall, you know, various stages throughout my upbringing where I'd see my mum literally counting 1s and 2p's to be able to go and buy something for the shopping. I remember bailiffs coming to our house to try and, you know, take the house from us at one stage. You know, I remember Christmases without boilers, so I'd have to have, what I used to do, it was horrible. This was when I was back in college, right? I'd go have a freezing cold shower just to at least not smell, and then I'd get into bed to warm back up. You know, we never went abroad holidays. It was always sort of a caravan holiday for a couple of nights, for a week or whatever. And alongside that, our idea of eating out was sporadic. If we did eat out, it was a 2 for 10 kind of place. I remember once actually eating at Bella Italia, but I don't think it was called Bella Italia back then. Or was it? I think it was called Bella Pasta. Maybe, I could be right. Anyway, long story short, we grew up with very minimal disposable income. We certainly weren't on the fierceness of the poverty line. But when all of my college mates were going to France on abroad trips, I couldn't go because I didn't dare ask my parents for money. I had the chance to go to 2 proms. Again, I turned those chances down because the thought of me asking for a tuxedo, a suit, to pay towards a limousine, I didn't dare ask because I knew we didn't have the money. And one of the reasons I left full-time education was to get into full-time employment so I could keep those bailiffs away from my house. I gave up my A-levels to make sure that we didn't become homeless. So although I've gone off on a weird monologue there and a weird tangent, my love for money has never been to become, super rich, to become, driving around in a flash car or whatever. For me, money brings comfort, money brings safety, security, money brings freedom as well. And, I remember when I was growing up, I set out to think, actually, do you know what? I'm never going to be in those situations that I've been in as a kid. And although I'll never want to spoil my children, I want to make sure that they can live their lives without ever having to worry about the repercussions of lack of money or asking for money. So when I sort of started to get into sales, my first ever sale, let's get onto that on a more positive note, right? My first ever sale was actually at my local garden centre. I first of all did some work experience at my local garden centre. And then they loved me so much, understandably, and I became what they called a weekender. So we did some weekend work. And one of the best times to work in a garden centre is at Christmas, in my belief, right? I used to love it. We used to, obviously everyone's in a bit of a better nature anyway, and a better mood. It's Christmas. We had Santa going on. And, one of my jobs was to help people with Christmas trees. And so, you'd be there, you'd saw the end off, you've got to take an inch off, put it through the netting machine, you'd help families choose and everything. One of our managers, Sev, still connected with him to this day, lovely guy, love him to pieces, big inspiration for me. He put a bit of a challenge towards us. Bear in mind, we were, 15, 16, 17, give or take. And obviously you'd sell a Christmas tree. And Sev said, listen, I want you to cross-sell one of these Christmas tree stands. He didn't use the word cross-sell, but he said, every family that you speak to, I want you to try and flog one of these Christmas tree stands. We talked about the Christmas tree stand. We looked at the Christmas tree stand. We got to know it. And he set up a bit of a challenge. He said, whoever sells the most Christmas tree stands will win. To be honest, I don't even think it was that much money. I want to say 50 quid. It could have been less. It probably could have been 20 quid. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, we're talking about 20 years ago. So even a fiver was a lot more money back then than it is now, right? And that competitive edge in me pushed me forward, and I loved it. This was a 15 or 16-year-old lad who had never sold before. And I'm going to tell you I'll tell you what, I'll just open up, what that taught me. But actually what I found very quickly is that naturally I sold the benefits. If you don't know, a Christmas tree will soak up a pint of water pretty much every single day. And, normally people kind of put the Christmas trees in a bucket, X, Y, Z, and, it'd fall over. You couldn't feed them well enough, nurture them well enough. So part of my pitch was this whole, hey, listen, we can sell these. If you take that, we recommend these Christmas tree stands. And instead of saying it will hold your tree up well, or, it's there, it looks pretty, it's better than a bucket, I'd say, listen, these Christmas trees drink up to a pint a day. No dissimilar to you, sir. Ha, 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 using a bit of humour. Now, listen, with these Christmas tree stands, they make your Christmas tree last longer. It means you're going to have less pine needles falling around, meaning you're going to have to hoover less. So for the investment, it's worth it today, and it's going to last you for, the next 5 or 10 Christmases, give or take. And I won that challenge. Look, in the grand scheme of things, was it hard to cross-sell a product with a substanding product? Probably not. But I loved it. I love that buzz. And if you're a salesperson, you'll know that buzz I'm talking about. It's not always about that money. It's not always about that commission check. It's that buzz of, I've helped someone, I've achieved, I've won, I've been competitive. And for me, I think actually when I look back at a lot of these stories, a lot of it comes from that competitive edge. So maybe if you're listening to this, a lot of salespeople, a lot of business owners out there miss the chance to cross-sell and upsell, and they lose so much money. They lose so much money. If I, a 15 or 16-year-old kid, can cross-sell a product, you and your team can. Now, the difference is between me being able to cross-sell or not in that situation was the training. If my boss, if Sev had come to me and say, hey guys, listen, I want you to flog these with every Christmas tree you sell, best of luck. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it. But Sev talked about the product, talked about the benefits, showed us through it. And also as well, the competition really helped. Another thing I started to get into selling was finance. And I say finance, retail finance. For many people, they'll know that for a short while, I worked at the base. Okay, it's not as cool as that. It's home base, right? And once again, we were targeted, on selling store finance, store credit, which some people is a big no-no, but for us, it was good. And once again, that was another product that I came to know and love. It's a product that they set up a competition to find whoever can, sort of sell the most and talk about the most. And lo and behold, I became the top salesperson for that product. Again, I didn't do anything too sleazy. I didn't walk up to every single person in the store and say, hey, listen, just so you know, we offer store credit, we offer store finance, or, it was never sort of pushy like that. But actually, my sales pitch was simple. I would be helping a customer choosing some garden furniture, a barbecue, sometimes just furniture, sometimes wallpaper, a bathroom, whatever it was, right? And I'd say, hey, listen, did you know we offer store credit? And actually, if you sign up today, I can knock you 10% off and just pay the debt within, 28 days and you don't pay a penny more. So I was selling the benefits, and actually I was helping the company more and more and more by sorting out this finance agreement. Some of those terms, don't quote me on those. I'm sure that was what the deal was. It was words to that effect, right? Lo and behold, two things helped me in that situation. One, the reminder that I was helping people. The second thing was that I had good training on the product. And third is I just brought up in conversation. Nothing I've ever done from a sales world has been too pushy, too fierce. It's just been, hey, listen, we can offer you this. If you fancy it, let me know. These are the reasons why I'd recommend it. It takes 5 minutes. Push on, right? Another thing that I used to sell throughout the years was antiques and art. A big part, well, not a big part of my life, was I used to buy and sell antiques, antiquities, collectibles, art years ago. And what I used to do, I used to go to auctions, house clearances, charity shops, car boots, and I'd find things that had been undervalued, find things that I thought could be sold for a higher price. And when I'm talking about antiques and art, I never like to deal with in the tat. Sometimes I'd naturally pick some up if it was part of a collection. It's never about the tat that you'd see in your grandma's house, your nana's house, or anything like that. No offense to Nan there. But actually, what I was trying to find was the whole belief behind that all was I was trying to find unique things that wouldn't normally be in people's houses, right? I hate walking into a house now and you see the same old things that anyone else can buy, right? The live, love, love sign, it's gin o'clock sign, or, the kind of sculpture from Next or something, all of which I'm sure are lovely and make your home wonderful. But what I loved was the thought of walking into a home and someone going, gosh, I love that. Where did you get that from? You're never going to get that. That's a one-off. It's a one-off piece. It's really hard to find. And again, that really helped me to develop my negotiation skills with some of the sellers that I was buying from, but also the communication skills when I was selling. I used to set up stands, on marketplaces. Like I went to Hinckley Market to sell, which was great. We made some good money there. I used to sell at antiques fairs and everything. And once again, that allowed me to practice and hone my negotiation skills, my people skills, but also my presentation and marketing skills. At that time, the biggest social media platform was Twitter, or modern day people know it as X, right? Twitter was the thing that was kicking off. Now, when I used to go to all these other stands, a lot of people would have, put their stands up and they would have made a lovely display. They would have done this, would have done that. I think, well, what can I do differently, right? And so I used to think, well, what can I do to draw attention and make ourselves grander? So a couple of the simple hints and tips is we had a Twitter account, right? We used to tweet regularly, talking about antiques, art, where we're going to be, what's going on, that kind of thing. We were exploring, or I was exploring, I should say, marketing, and in particular social media marketing and digital marketing. Like I said at the time, X or Twitter was such a big thing. We always used to, or I say we because I used to bring my dad along to help out and stuff. Another thing we used to do was try and make the stand as beautiful, as pristine, but as attracting as possible. We used to take cakes to get people. The cakes were free. Just come and look at the stand. You don't have to buy anything. Come and look at the stand. Take a cake away with you, right? We were trying to use that kind of clickbait, that kind of loss leader to get people to come and talk to us. We also wanted, unfortunately, I never got hold of one, an old-fashioned till, one with a ding on it, because I wanted to draw that attention every time we made a sale. Ding! Oh, what's that noise? Oh, God, let's go look at them. I was always trying to think about what we can do differently. And I think now, as a salesperson, that's really helped me understand that actually, as a salesperson, we shouldn't fit in. We shouldn't be samey. We should try and do things a bit different. And finally, it's a well-known story. I say it on a lot of my podcasts. I used to sell fine food and ingredients, right? And one thing that taught me was to ask questions. Once again, and I talk about it a lot on the podcast, we believe that sales should be about talking and telling and going on and on and on. But actually, selling is so much easier when you listen, when you shut up and you ask questions. And selling fine food and ingredients allowed me to understand questioning a little bit more. Dealing with chefs at times is very hard. They're rash, they're abrasive, they're fast, they don't have time. And the best question I ever asked during that business was, what are you using that for, chef? That was the one question that worked dramatically. And the reason for that was a chef would say, can you organise a box of butter? Can I have some truffle oil? Can I have some arborio rice? Yeah, of course you can, chef. Just have it. What we're using it for? You got a bit of a risotto going on. Yeah, I've got a risotto on at the weekend. Great stuff. Did you know we sell wild mushrooms? Do you need any fresh truffle perhaps to enhance it? What about your stock? I can't remember what I've missed off there in what I've said. You know, what about your butter? Do you need any of that? Oh God, I didn't know you do that. What about your Grana Padano, your Reggiano, your Parmesan? Like what are you doing with that? Oh God, I didn't know you sold that. By asking those questions, that opened up so many people. We were very stuck in our ways back then, and many chefs would come to us for one or two or three or four things, right? One of my jobs was to up that, to change that. And actually, a memory, is coming to my head. My target was to increase sales by £1 million, right? Little old me, on a 26 grand a year job, whatever it was, to increase sales by £1 million, right? How can I do it? And the story goes that all I realized that we had to upsell or cross-sell, however you want to look at it, on every order, just £5. If we could just increase every order into the business by £5, we would up our turnover by £1 million within 12 months, right? And trust me, when you're selling, boxes of butter at, I don't know, 40 quid, boxes of duck breast at £32.50, cases of blue roll at £7.50, you can see how easy it would become. So look, I realise how long I've waffled and sort of monologued it a little bit there, but each of those jobs has taught me different things. It's taught me different things about myself. It's taught me different things about customers. They've taught me different things about how marketing works, how sales works, and the marketplace. It taught me how to approach strangers, how to negotiate, how to present value, and how to sell the benefits, how to build trust, and ultimately, how to ask for the sale. So for me, look, that's been my journey. And I think for any of you, never, ever, ever devalue any experience of selling, marketing that you encounter. Each one will teach you something. Your job is to listen, to look, react, and gain feedback, right? Maybe gain feedback and then react. But your job is to understand what's going on. I'm so thankful for my sales career. And of course, now running a business, selling all kinds of things, right? Every one of those steps has helped me to become the better salesperson I can. Of course, alongside studying and research and everything else, but each of those hands-on things has helped me become better. And in this next section, we're going to share some of your stories. Before we do move on, don't forget, if you want some actual sales training, if you want to really enhance your sales training skills, don't forget, I'm a sales trainer. I can help you. Whether you work in B2B, B2C, human to human, however you want to word it, I can help you. And there's a number of ways we can do that. We can work one-to-one, work in groups, workshops, or you can check out our online sales training courses. If you fancy just learning sales in your own pace, in your own time, at your own home, in a very cost-effective manner, all you got to do is click the link in the comments or the show notes below, check out our online courses, See you there. So just quickly, because we have overrun slightly, we've got some listener stories. No listener questions this time, but some listener stories, which I'm really thankful that you managed to send in. First one is from Hannah. I think Hannah's in Derbyshire. She says, my first sale was at 15, similar to me, working weekends at a local florist. A man came in looking lost. He didn't know what flowers to get for his anniversary, and I spent 10 minutes asking about his wife. I ended up selling him a bouquet with twice the price of what he came in for. And then he came back the next year to thank me. It was the first time I realised selling is just listening, then guiding. Yeah, Hannah, love that. There's a couple of things there. You've developed relationship, you've asked questions. It's very easy. Someone to come in and they go, listen, I need some flowers. And you go, what's your budget? And they say, oh, a tenner. And you point them in that direction. I love that story, Hannah. And at a young age, that's great. You've asked, great questions for 10 minutes, develop that relationship. And not only you made that sale, you've got repeat business as well. So love that. What a great story. This one is from Chris in Manchester. Chris says, when I was 22, I saw my first website design package. I was terrified. I'd only done one job before, but I'd built rapport with the client over 3 phone calls. Fair play. When they said, let's go ahead, I had to mute the call to fist bump. That sale taught me that consistency and patience are everything. Chris, what a great story. I'll give you that little fist bump there. Yeah, and look, and I love that. And what I've taken from that story is that feeling of that first sale. You could have sold something for £5, you could have sold something for £5,000. But I think when you get those sales in, right, it's something, right, that only salespeople can tell you. When you get that sale in, when you get that result, there are some things that beat it, but not, it's hard. And finally, this one has got no name on it, I'm afraid. But it says, mine was actually by accident. I was helping my dad at a market stall and a woman was looking at scarves. I said, that one will go really well with your coat. She smiled, tried it on and bought 2. I didn't know I was selling, but I was. I love that. It taught me that a genuine compliment, if honest, can move someone to buy. Yeah, I love that. It's just natural selling, not forced, not pushy, not, hey, listen, if you buy that, I'll give you 10% off, or if you buy 2 of them, I'll give you a 50% off, or, do you want it? It was just hey, look, that'll look lovely on you. That compliment, that relationship building. And that's what, like I said, that's what sales is all about. Sales isn't selling, right? Sales is everything else in between. So love those stories. And look, maybe we need to do another episode like this because I've loved hearing those stories. Look, everyone makes a first sale once upon a time, and for me, it builds confidence. Sales isn't about slick words, closing, objection handling, psychology, mindset. It's just about connection. Genuinely, sales is about human connection. It's human to human. It's relationship development, right? You don't always need to know everything. But if you put the energy, the effort in, build that relationship, show genuine care, show genuine interest, then sales comes so much easier. And just to kind of wrap that little section up, LinkedIn have said that 76% of top sales performers say they learn the most during their first 12 months in sales, which I think can be positive, but can also be negative if you're working in the wrong environment, getting the wrong training. So please, if you are new to sales, make sure you're partnering with great mentors, great peers that you can learn from. Make sure you are reading and studying. Buy some of my books on sales. Buy some of these guys and girls' books on sales. And of course, if you need some online sales training, then do let me know. What a great episode this has been so far. But just before we wrap up, we're going to come on to our book recommendation of the week. Now, I mentioned this book last week, and just as I was scanning the bookcase as to what to recommend for today, I saw it and I thought, well, it'd be rude of me, very rude of me if I don't recommend this. Now, I've realised that for the past couple of weeks, I've not really recommended a sales book per se. So next week, I'll 100% pull out what we'd class as a traditional sales book. But today, we're going to read Counselling for Toads. Now, I read this, a long time ago, 15 years potentially, maybe a tiny bit more. And the book is a wonderful book by Robert DeBoard. And put simply, it is a book, if I'm honest, about counselling, but it goes beyond that. It talks about emotional intelligence. It talks about emotions as a whole. It talks about how to communicate with other people. And the reason it's called Counselling for Toads is actually it's based on, what's his name? Kenneth Grahame's Wind in the Willows. So every character in this book is a character from Wind in the Willows. And allow me to read the blurb for you. Toad, the famous character in Kenneth Grahame's Wind in the Willows, is in a very depressed state, and his good friends Rat, Mole and Badger are worried that he might do something silly. First they nursed him, then they encouraged him, then they told him to pull himself together. Finally, Badger could stand it no longer. "Now look here, Toad, this can go on no longer," he said sternly. "There is only one thing left. You must have counselling." Robert de Board's engaging account of Toad's experience of counselling will capture the imagination of the growing readership of people who are interested in counselling and the counselling process. In this sequel to the story of life on the riverbank, Toad and his friends come to life all over again. Heron the counsellor uses the language and ideas of transactional analysis as his counselling method. Through the sessions or chapters in this book, Toad learns how to analyse his own feelings and develop his emotional intelligence. By the end of the book, as debonair as ever, I always wonder if I'm saying that right, he is setting out on a completely new adventure. So as I mentioned, this is not a sales book, right? And it's not a business book. But I believe that emotional intelligence in business and in sales is probably one of the best super skills, the superpowers that anyone can have. If you're working in business, if you're working in teams, if you're interacting with any human being, this book is fantastic. Go pick up a copy. As always, I'll drop the link in the comments below. And that about wraps us up for today's episode of the Sales Circle podcast. If you made it this far, listen, kudos to you, fist bump, well done. Thank you for making it this far. Just do me a quick favor, hit the follow button and the subscribe button as well. As I said earlier, look, this, to be fair, it's been a nice episode for me. I've been able to relive some memories and share some of my own experiences and stories. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did. And I hope that some of my stories have helped you understand how I developed my sales skills and my sales career. And I hope actually it may have rejigged some of your memories and rejigged some of your examples as to your career. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear more of your first sales stories. I'd love to hear more of your sales questions. If you do ever want to write in, all you got to do is write into thesalescircleofficial@gmail.com or hunt me down on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, or find The Sales Circle anywhere on social media. As a quick reminder before we round up, don't forget every episode of The Sales Circle hits everywhere on Thursday. Whether you are watching on YouTube, whether you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, every Thursday, we've got half an hour full of sales motivation, sales skills to really amp up your career. Thank you so much for tuning me on this week's episode. I've been Rob Spence. Until next time, all the best. Nice. And that's it for another episode of The Sales Circle. Make sure you hit that follow button, join us over on social media, and we'll see you next week.